Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and very good afternoon. Welcome back to our second part here of our webinar today. So I hope you can hear me clearly and also see my slide. And yeah. Okay, good. Okay, I've share my slide. Okay, to continue from where we from where we stop. Yeah, can you see my slide? Yeah, okay, good. Okay. If we go back to the process, yeah, or step in design thinking, yeah, we start with empathize, yeah. We put ourselves in the shoes of the customer with the ultimate aim to gather, to gather or to dig, to explore, to discover the pain point suffered, suffered by our customer. Okay, even though the way that you see my flow of discussion is very much toward using quantitative method, this is because I'm a quanti person. I mean, I'm quite comfortable with quanti because I'm trained in quanti. I have some exposure with regard to quali, but perhaps I feel more comfortable to relate my discussion with quantitative method. But it doesn't mean that you can't really apply design thinking in quali. Actually, you can, because at the end of the day, design thinking is beyond method, is beyond process. It is a paradigm, it's a mindset, it's the lens that you see the world. So, so in that sense, you can always apply design thinking. Yeah, you can always apply design thinking in whatever method. I would call that is irrelevant of any method. You can always apply that this paradigm. Even if you are using qualitative, I think if you apply empathize, you can always identify what are the pain points suffered by your customer, and from there it will be a good basis for you to select companies, or if you're using a case study analysis, for example, case study method. I mean, that will be a good basis for you to learn from the others company what will be the winning model, the appropriate model that they are basically use, and try to mesh, between the pain point and the business model that apply by those company that you use in your case study. So at the end of the day, because whatever method that you use, if you apply or if you look the research from the design thinking point of view, at the end of the day, you are expected to come up with something, model which can help the user to relieve their pain. We can help the user to improve their business performance. So with that in mind, so that's why I said I have few cases that I'm the examiner for qualitative research, for example. At the end, I mean, when I examine that, I mean, those theses, I reckon that the thesis were able to come out or propose a model, for example, a model which can be applied by a company out there. So when I ask, why don't you develop this and turn your finding into a business model? So the candidate would say that it's not enough, and it's not it cannot be it cannot form what we call a complete model. But my take on that is it's okay, for you to come up with the initial model, and after that you keep on improve and add more values into that based on the future research. But at least you have something to offer. So I mean, to me, that's why irregardless of either you use a quali or quanti, if you have this paradigm, I still believe that you can always apply and use this, to ensure that your research finding will add values. We have some value proposition to the user. Yeah. So in essence, that either you are the quali. I mean, to me, quali and quanti is just another paradigm, just another path or method for you. I mean, let's say, I mean, I would consider research methodology just a road, if you want to go from Penang to KL, for example. So there are many various route or road that you can take with the ultimate aim of reaching KL. So same goes to the method, So you can use quali or quanti, but if you have if you have the right paradigm with the intention of to come up with something that you can offer to your user, so whatever method that you use, it will make impact. It will make an impact. I mean, you will definitely offer something to the customer. So this is what I perceive. Yeah. Any thought on that? Any thought on that? Yeah. Yeah, it can be a mixed method. It can be a quanti, a quali. I mean, to me, this method is just a paradigm. Just a method. Just the way that you perceive. Research. But the most important thing is basically the paradigm that you use. The whole mindset that you use. What are basically the ultimate aim. Yeah. So okay. So with that in mind, so that's why I'm not. I mean, please don't worry. Okay, either you are using quant. I mean, again, most of my discussion today we basically tailored toward quanti, because again, I'm a quanti person that I'm quite comfortable with quanti. Yeah, but again, as if you are using a quanti or mixed method, still to me that this paradigm will really help you. Okay, so we go to the next step of define. Define is basically you try to unpack, you try to synthesize the finding that you got from the empathy, because from the empathy you capture all the pain point, and also yeah, what are the pain points suffered by the user. So in define, you go a bit deeper into understanding the reason why, why they are, because we want to really make sure that the problem of the research that we want to explore is not basically addressing what you see on the surface. Yeah. Ideally, okay, if you can address the root of the issue. Yeah. So if you are able to address the root of the issue, you will be able to come up with the solution, with the model that we're going to be more sustainable in terms of the solution. Yeah. So, okay, when you discover, or when you try to discover the pain point, most of the pain points are in the form of adjective. Okay, for example, lack of, so these are the adjective form. All those pain are normally in the form of adjective. Lack, difficult, and so on. So these are in the form of adjective. To help us, based on research, if you want to come up with an innovative solution to address those pain points, it will be preferred, it will be much better if you can convert all the adjective into verb. Yeah, you have to convert all the adjective into verb. So one way to help you is basically, and is what the outcome should be at the define stage. At define stage, where you can develop, we call it the point of view statement, or the problem statement. This is here is where you take, yeah. Let's say let's say that you have this pain point, yeah, and from that pain point, you turn that pain point into verb, so that you can come up with this nature of statement. Where user, for example, user, you name the user, company, for example, yeah, user, company, need. So what are their pain points? So their pain point is basically they need something. Yeah, they need something. They need something to help them to relieve from their pain point, because there must be an insight of it. There must be a reason behind it. Because if you can understand what are the reasons why they want to address, or if they want to relieve their pain, is basically that will motivate you more, or to help you to generate much more idea, a lot of idea for you to help your customer. Okay, I think if I share this with you, that will be you can see it much better. Okay, this is what I mean by point of view or problem statement. Yeah, problem statement. So as I said just now, yeah, you turn that pain point, yeah, you turn that pain point into a point of view statement or problem statement by using this parameter. User, the name of the user, need what they need actually, what they need to solve their problem, what they need to solve their problem. So in this case, let's say that I turn, or basically I combine several of the pain points, to become one common pain point, yeah, because definitely if you gather, yeah, if you get all the, I mean, several point, there will be some common theme that you can lump, you know, some of the pain point into a common theme. Yeah. So let's say that I call that one theme, yeah, as environmental knowledge and skill. So inside here, there are few, you know, there are few pain points that fall into this. I would call it variable. Yeah, because I think, let's say that you have 20 or 40 pain points. I don't think it's wise enough, you know, for you to form 40 variable. You know, it's quite impossible, right? For you to have 40 variable. And also we don't want to have this element of multi-connectivity, and you know, some of the variable might be what we call interrelated. So to avoid that, you come up with fewer variable, which under a few themes. Yeah. And just I shared this with you just now. Okay. Yeah. So from all these pain point, yeah, from all these pain point, so I gather the common pain point into a theme, and each theme I call it as one variable. So let's say that, you know, when I really look into those pain point, ultimately, I mean, ultimately, I managed to come up with several themes, you know, several themes, you know, but of course, I mean, you can always revisit on this, you know, at the end, I mean, you can always consult, engage with your customer, whether all these variables are basically applicable to them or not, right? So let's say that we have these seven variable, yeah, 7 variables, and yeah, and then you form this, we call it a problem statement. Yeah, so in the problem statement, I would say this one, the user, it can be the customer, it can be the management, it can be the company, depends on the nature of your focus group or your population. Okay, if your population is company, for example, so maybe you can call this, you know, management or company. So the company need to be educated, you know, about environmental knowledge and skill, so that for what? Yeah, to contribute toward the firm performance. So in order for this company to perform or to be successful, they need to ensure, yeah, they need to educate, you know, they need to educate their management, their employee, you know, about this environmental knowledge, or the business need to work, need to improve, okay, the level of education, the level of awareness about environmental knowledge and skill, so that it will contribute toward the firm performance. All right. So can you see this one? This problem statement, yeah, POV statement, where we have this parameter, user, need, what, because. Okay, based on that, you turn into this, I will call this problem statement. And this I will also call that unmet need. This is what the SME are basically looking for. They want to know. Okay, so that means your business model, your model, basically, you know, to provide to your customer, to the SME management, what will be the model that they can use or they can adopt, so that they can be successful toward addressing this issue of circular economy. So you're going to also help them to come up with a different way, and a different way that the management can educate or train their management on this environmental. And that also can be, that's why I say that I hope you can observe this clearly. You can also turn this into your research question. You see? So the research question is, does environmental knowledge and skill have significant relationship with the firm performance? So you see, so all this, I mean, the environmental and so on, and this also indirectly, okay, relate to, I mean, it can be also later on, can turn into your hypothesis. There is significant relationship between environmental knowledge, skill, and firm performance. So I hope you can see. Yeah? I hope you can see that how I turn the pain point, okay, pain point into variable, okay, into variable, and from the variable I turn that into a research question. And you know that there must be a relation. I mean, you cannot run away. I mean, from having what we call a very clear and close relationship between research question and also hypothesis. Okay, any question on this? Because I think if you can follow this flow, I think others will follow through. Okay, any question on this? Can you see the logic? I hope how you can see the logic. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So how you can see the logic? Yeah, the others as well. Yeah. Because I just want to see. I mean, because at the end of the day, when it comes to research, everything needs to be rationalized. You need to you need to reason out. I think one of the reasons why I think we have challenges, yeah, even to develop a good or winning framework, because we are lack of basically systematic thinking process. I hope I can offer all of you with something new here, okay, on how it can help you. How can he help you to develop the research question and also the hypothesis, basically based on the pain point. Because to me, the essence is the pain point. So that's why that you need to find ways. This is you have to find ways on how to get what we call an accurate. I know there means with some bias. I know there's some question on the biasness. Yeah, I totally agree. But the system will take care, because that's why you need to engage. You need to engage all these pain point with your customer. And even you don't have to wait until the testing, but when you develop the framework and hypothesis, you can always engage with the customer, ask their opinion, because if you get any confirmation from the customer, so that's also means that acceptable. So that's why one way to avoid this biasness is you have to look for the truth. Look for the truth means that you are open. You are open. Your idea, yeah, we normally start with the research that, then we start with the problem statement. Yeah. A lot. That's why I say that when it comes to research, there are different method. There are different method that that we can use. So that's why that yeah, even though conventionally there are different ways that we can identify the research problem, this literature gap. Yeah, you can continue doing that, but I just propose another approach, which I think that which I believe that which is much more practical, and which ultimately also have more impactful, which is basically because to me, I think if you identify the research gap from the literature, I think you are still talking about, you are still living in the past. I'm sorry to say that. I still and I still thinking that, you are still living in the past. Yeah, you can use, because you can use the past literature to identify the research gaps as problem. But I think, that also, that's why I say that, at the beginning, depends on how you start. I mean, do you start with the answer or you start with the question? So I think if you start with the question, with the answer, and try to justify that, you will find some justification, and when you test relationship, you will get the significant relationship. By the end of the day, will that address the need, the pain, the pain of the customer? This is something that you need to reflect on. Something that you can. I mean, again, when it comes to research, you have all the freedom. You have all the freedom, but ultimately is go back to the fundamental. Why you are conducting this research. So that's why I think, I know it's quite painful as well, even for my student, but I basically not really force them. I basically inspire and encourage them to do this empathetic, what we call step. Put yourself in the shoes of the. So this is what, and that will help. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know, and when it comes to the real gap, so that's why I think that if you can find the real gap, this is what will be the potential impact. To me, if you really identify the real gap, this is the research outcome that your customer would love to see. But the issue is that you have to do a bit of extra thinking, all right, to justify. So that should be the process that, this is what you need to do in literature review. You need to find evidence. You need to find evidence, to show that, your idea, even I call that your belief, your belief statement. Basically, this problem statement, and later on, you're going to turn this into a hypothesis, is your belief statement. This is what you believe. Okay, if you have a strong belief in this, to me, go ahead. Okay, go ahead and you find all the relevant literature. So that's why you can't afford to have this, what we call the internal silo. You can't afford to really look into a certain area of research. You need to open yourself to the other disciplines, because the other discipline might have the literature that can use as to support your belief statement, or is what you believe. So if you limit yourself to that, to your own area, for example, you might not be able to find, something to substantiate, or something that you can use as a basis for you to support your argument. Yeah. So this is what we meant by so this is of course it will. I mean, it will require a different, and an extra effort on that. But to me, you will find. Okay, you will find. And in fact, if you can concur, if you can get some sort of confirmation from your user or from the industry, for example, I think your line of thinking is correct. So maybe you can find a certain theory, for example, certain research finding to support your, to support your idea. Yeah. So yeah, this is so. So I just use one of the IV, yeah, in the independent variable, and also then I work on the other one, because again, when you want to develop this, because now the ultimate aim, yeah, the ultimate aim for this define is basically you come up with your research problem. Okay, so by now, I think by now, because you are being exposed to all this, research method, and you are being exposed to how to develop the framework. So by now, you should have some idea already, what it takes to be an acceptable model or framework. So for any framework, so there must be for quantitative, yeah, there must be an IV, for example, mediating, moderating, and DV. So these are the key, yeah, these are the key, so these are the key variable that you need to work on. I'm not sure about your university, the other university, but as far as, I mean, most universities are concerned, because the complexity of the framework matters, when when we are talking about the level of study. Yeah, for PhD, for example, we would expect the thesis should have all that element. Yeah, the element of IV, mediating, moderator, and also the DV. So with that in mind, you can always visualize. You can always visualize what would be the again, or I mean, which pain point. Okay, which pain point would, I mean, will you may consider into which variable. So some pain point you can turn that into IV, some pain point you can turn that into mediating, and also the other. So this is something that the skill that you need to work with your respective supervisors, so that you can. But ideally, okay, you have to use as much as possible all the pinpoint and turn that into a framework. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes, you're right. Okay. Yeah. So now, okay. So for any, I think this is quite basic, quite a basic knowledge, because if you have this framework which have IV with IV, for example, and then we also have MV, mediating and also moderating, and the DV. First of all, you need to see the relationship between IV and also the DV. So that means the firm performance is DV, and this environmental knowledge and skill as IV. Yeah. So you need to come up with this problem. So again, you may have some confusion about with regard to this problem statement. So I want to repeat that this problem statement, you can turn that into what we call unmet need. So when you empathize, the pain suffered by the company, this is what they need. Okay, they need to work on this, because most of the SME, in fact, if you survey around, if you talk to all these, industry captain, you will find that lack of awareness. So they want, so your research should be able to show that the environmental knowledge and skill is very important. And then you can also later on, we're going to see how shall you help them to educate their people or their employee on this element. Okay, and then we look into this. And then we look into the relationship between IV, between IV and also the mediating variable. So the same procedure. So that means the problem statement would be the user or the company need to be educated, about environmental knowledge and skill to build firm competitive advantage. So the competitive advantage is the mediating variable. Because you know that, so you put yourself in the shoes of the company, and you know that, competitive advantage is the key. So that's why we need to really, help, So when we develop this thesis or research problem, with the ultimate aim is that we want to help the SME. And we know that, SME, any company, in order for them to be successful and survive, they need some sort of competitive advantage. Competitive advantage. And you want to help them, how? By having a good knowledge, awareness about this environmental issue, that will spur, that will foster, and that will help, the company to gain a competitive advantage, right? So this I call the research question. And the research question is basically, does environmental knowledge have significant relationship with firm competitive advantage? So this is one of the research questions that you need to address. And you can easily turn that into hypothesis. The hypothesis is that there is a positive significant relationship between environmental knowledge and skill and field and firm competitive advantage. So you see here, so this is basically that how the problem, you can use the problem statement as a basis, for you to come up with the research question, and also at the same time you are building on the research question, something that you're going to see after this. All right. Okay. So I hope you can visualize. I hope you can visualize how would be the theoretical framework look like. So I think from here you can tell already. You can tell that how the framework would look like. So we have the IV, we have the mediating variable, we have the moderating variable, and we also have the dependent variable based on the pain point that you develop. So with that in mind, and then you can work on your research problem. All right. Then research problem and problem statement. And then so the next one is basically, you want to know, right, the customer need to strengthen the firm competitive advantage to foster. So now, now the company also need your guidance, your recommendation on how to strengthen, how to strengthen their competitive advantage, so that this competitive advantage will help them to be more successful, or they can perform successfully in their business. So again, the same parameter. So need verb, need verb to strengthen, on firm, so that it can help to foster firm performance. And over here, we still have, you can turn this into research question and also hypothesis. There is a positive, significant relationship between firm competitive advantage and firm performance. So again, so this is how that's how it can help you to develop to develop the hypothesis. So again, I keep on harping on this element of unmet need. Unmet need. So so you as a scholar, you as a researcher, this is something that that you can offer to the SME management. They might not be able to see this. So you have to use all the skill that you learn from research methodology and others, to help them to come up, not only to come up with this model, and also come up with strategies, way and means on how to strengthen their competitive advantage. Okay, and this also, okay, since your model, okay, have the mediating variable, okay, mediating variable, you also need to come up with this new, what we call this problem statement. Problem statement, where it still use the same parameter. Okay, user need what? Okay, need to know, right? Need to know that the firm competitive advantage mediate the relationship between environmental knowledge and skill related to circular economy and firm performance. This one maybe sounds a bit tricky, but as a researcher, I think you should be able, this is our language. This is the researcher language, And so, I mean, this is how even the hypothesis look like, This so you need to, maybe to the management, they might not be able to appreciate this much, but as a researcher, we know that, this is how the hypothesis or the academic, or the research problem statement should be narrated. This is how we should write, for example, that if we can turn this into research question, does the level of firm competitive advantage mediate the relationship between environmental knowledge and skill and firm performance? So this is basically the research question, and we can turn this into hypothesis. So the hypothesis would look like the relationship between environmental knowledge and skill and firm performance is mediated positively by the level of firm competitive advantage. So, so because this is at the PhD level, I think all PhD theses need to have this complexity, especially you need to incorporate the elements of mediating variable, moderating variable. So for those who are new to this, so perhaps maybe you can enhance it further. So that's why I keep on, harping, or I keep on reminding you that, this research methodology course should be, you should learn it on a continuous basis. All right. Don't say that, you pass and then you just forget about it and you just continue. No, I mean, so these are the knowledge that you keep on improving, especially for those who are doing a quantitative research. So these are the concept, that you need to comprehend, the element of mediating, moderating, and so on. So if you can see, all these are basically built from the pain point, and from the pain point, you develop the problem statement. So from the problem statement, you can always, you can always turn this into the into research question, and from the research question, you can easily develop the hypothesis from here. So this is another one. This is for the moderating variable. Okay, still, because you believe that the management also need to work on innovation skill, and you believe, maybe you believe that, you know, design thinking is one of the popular, I mean, one of the very sought after technique on how to innovate. And then you can post this element. But when you engage with the customer, with the SME, you see that they are basically lacking on this skill, lack of this skill, and also lack of environment and culture for them to innovate. So you can put this into a problem statement. Okay, for example, need, okay, the company need to apply design thinking paradigm and moderate the relationship between firm competitive advantage and firm performance. Yeah. So yeah. So all these. Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is not basically. Yeah. It's sorry. Yeah. This should be. This should be the knowledge. Yeah. I mean, this moderation. The moderator should be between IV and DV. Yeah. IV and DV. So yeah. Yeah. I will correct this. Yeah. It should be between IV and DV. Yeah. So yeah. So all this, yes, and then you come up with this particular problem statement on how, and then you need to, you know, come up with the measurement of the how to measure the firm performance. So with all those steps, yeah, you know, sounds like a bit what we call, you know, a bit too much, yeah, too much. But if you really follow the step, I would say that, you know, it really, you know, I think if you're familiar with the step, I think you can do that, you know, for the rest of the variable. So perhaps maybe I can coin all those, you know, all those problem into what we call this research problem. Yeah. So if I summarize all these problem that we mentioned, okay, so we come up with this, you know, so the company need to ascertain, yeah. So your model, your problem, okay, your problem is, I mean, your research problem is to meet this unmet need of the customer, because the customer want, okay, want to ascertain, they need some guidance on how to build, okay, how to build their firm competitive advantage, okay, and also they need to build on their, they need to educate their sustainable circular economy practices, all right, which all these can enhance, yeah, can enhance the firm performance, while design thinking paradigm moderate the relationship. So so I say that this statement, it sounds very academic, you know, but as a researcher, you should be able to read this and turn this into a research. Yeah, because I think if you really reflect, it's even if it's at the beginning, you may perceive this is quite complex, it's quite difficult for you to digest, you know, but if you can understand all the concept, you know, mediate, moderate, and all this, I think it's quite, I mean, really clear what you need to develop, you know, what type of research that you are expected to deliver, you know. PhD should focus more on contribution or complexity of the research of the research model. Yeah, at the end of the day, the research, yeah, of course, you can, because sometimes the examiner would differentiate the quality, yeah, of your research based on the complexity of your hypothesis or research model. if it's only a simple direct relationship between IV and DV, for example, so the examiner might say that, even at the undergraduate level or master level, we see a much more complex model than this. So it's quite difficult for you to defend, if your model is quite straightforward. So that's why my advice is that, at the master level, maybe you can go from maybe IV, maybe IV and DV with moderator, or IV and DV with mediating variable. To me, at least we have all these, three variables, into your model, into your model. So, but to me, the safest is even, the safest is, yeah, how about, yeah, we're going to see the, how about IV and outcome? Yeah, this is also another model, okay, another model. Yeah, sometimes they call it outcome, sometimes they call it DV. But to me, whatever concept, term that for variable that you use, but it needs to show some complexity on that. Yeah, complexity. So complexity means that you need to have at least 3 to 4 different type of variable. Yeah. So so again, this okay, I hope I can share with you, which maybe not so, maybe in the layman term, yeah, in layman, where I basically translate and transform this what we call very academic research problem into a layman term, even it's quite challenging as well, yeah, even to understand. Okay, so maybe I can put this way, companies need to figure out, okay, how sustainable circular economy practices affect their success in terms of the performance. The company need to improve firm competitive advantage, will help to clarify, or as intermediate step to make companies perform better. Additionally, companies need to improve the design thinking paradigm to strengthen the relationship between sustainable circular economy practices and firm performance, which I think this, must be. I mean, I try. I know that it's not that perfect, but I try to coin this into, more, I mean, layman term, yeah. With ultimate aim is basically, at the end of the day, company need this. So your research should be able to address this need, because company needs, to figure out on how to improve their sustainable circular economy practices. This is what they need, because with that improvement, all right, this will be likely to improve their success, yeah, on the firm performance. And this company also need to improve their firm competitive advantage, because as a mediator, okay, as a mediator variable, okay, this variable would help to clarify, or as an intermediate step for the company, for the company to practice this, to practice the sustainable circular economy, okay, and to help them the performance of the company. So this basically, the statement that I try to coin when we take into consideration of these IV, mediating, and and DV. So now we have another variable that we also need to address. We call it the moderating variable. So instead of, you calling this moderating variable, I would coin this way, for example, additionally, companies need to improve the design thinking paradigm to strengthen the relationship between sustainable circular economy practices and firm performance. So this statement, I hope, this research statement, I hope that you as a researcher can use this as a basis for all, for you to design the whole process of your research. This, I would say, that will be the guiding light, will be the North Star, for you to fall back, for you to refer, when you are basically stuck, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you need to come up with something, you need to help, you need to come up with something that can help the company to improve their sustainable circular economy practices. So when you develop your research design, this is your ultimate aim, this is your objective, this is your objective, and you're going to translate this into your hypothesis and so on. And this also, maybe you can use this also as your belief system. This is what you assume, and this will be also your contribution from your research. How then we adapt the conceptual framework and its variable into the chapter 2 structure? Because at the end of the day, that's why we need to understand everything that we do, it has a purpose. Chapter 2, for example, if you're following the conventional organization of thesis, so chapter 2 is basically literature review. So when we develop, when we design our literature review, we should know that the ultimate aim of literature review is to design or to come up with the framework. This is the ultimate aim. So for you, okay, so the ultimate outcome is to develop the framework, the research framework, theoretical framework. So in order for you to develop that framework, okay, you need to follow the step. So this is the process that we are taking actually, with the ultimate aim of this is not done yet. This is only the middle path of the literature review. Okay, we have not completed as yet. So based on this research problem, right? This is where we, that is where we develop the hypothesis and so on and so forth. So I also share with you, the importance of having a good research problem. Because this problem is basically the specific issue and question that a researcher aims to investigate through the study. So that's why you need to come up with a clear problem statement, because if you have a very clear problem statement with all the variables that you have identified, okay, it will really help you in your literature review. Okay, so in your literature review, so your focus is basically more on basically sustain to basically substantiate the variable that you want to propose. So it basically defines the scope and purpose of the research. And also research problem set as a foundation for your research design. So I think everybody knows this. Yeah. So when it comes to the research problem, sometimes we need to borrow the concept like, the sciences, the engineering, for example. Their research problem is very direct, it's very straightforward. And so that's why we can see the clear impact, the research that generated by engineering, pure science discipline, because they have a very clear research problem. Yeah. So that's why I would say that we need to also learn. For those who are in social sciences, we need to learn from engineering and also science. Having a clear problem statement, because this is basically the foundation for our research design, data collection, analysis, and even we interpret the result. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. Thank you for those who try to share what is the moderating variables, and so basically, yeah, something that explain explain the relationship. Yeah, explain the relationship. Yeah. So we're going to see. So I think I also share with you, okay, the importance of research problem. So the key. This is a focus, direction of the significant and relevant justification for the research, and also research design and methodology and so on. So yeah, so I will once you see my notes, you will see all these importance. I will share with you all the important notes with regard to the research problem. And so as I said, I also share with you what is mediating variable. It's basically, the variable that explain, the association between the independent and dependent variable. Yeah. So basically explain, yeah, explain and account, yeah, or act as an intermediate step in the cause and effect relationship between the two variable. Yeah. So basically, it's just explain the relationship, between IV and DV. So I think we're going to learn more on this. Yeah. So again, the moderator is quite straightforward. Something that can influence the strength and direction of relationship, yeah, between IV and DV. Yeah, IV and DV. Yeah. So okay. All right. So once you clear on your research problem, all right, that is where you need to substantiate. All right, you need to substantiate your research. That you have to confirm or support your research problem with the theory. Yeah. So that's why I think, again, there's depending on the school of thought that you are trained. Some people might say that you can discover the research problem based on the theory, but I have no comment on that. That also will be another way of you discover. You identify the research problem. But my approach is basically you identify the research problem, and then you basically confirm, you clarify or confirm your research problem based on the appropriate theory that basically exists or available. Because we know that we need to have a theory, right? So in literature review chapter, you need to identify the theory. Because we know that if we can validate, for example, without theory, data collection is aimless, and without data, theory is useless. So that's how important the theory is. And theory is just like a net, you know. I mean, only those who cast with care. So theory also can be another element that you can use to safeguard you, you know, in your discussion and also the research process. Yeah, theory are the net which can one catches the fish of truth. Yeah, so all right, so you need a theory as well to substantiate, to support your problem statement, because as I said, that you know, your hypothesis is your belief statement. So since you want to get that buy-in, yeah, since you want to get the buy-in for your belief statement, you need to be well supported by a theory before you can test that using the real data. Right? So, and theory is a contemplation of the world, and theory are the instruments that enable us to decipher the hidden pattern of the world. So this is just to convince, I think, just to remind, I think all of you aware that, you know, just to remind you the importance of the importance of theories. Yeah. So these are the, you know, so I also share with you why, I mean, how you're going to select, you know, how you're going to select the theory, you know, the process that we have to undergo. All right. So again, I think before you jump, I mean, again, this is depending on which school of thought that you follow. Yeah. So what, to me, whatever approach that you take, yeah, you need to be clear on your research problem. Yeah. So based on the research problem, okay, this will help. Yeah, this will help you to identify the relevant theory. All right. And conduct a comprehensive literature search, you know, evaluate the theoretical relevance and assess empirical support and so on. So to me, yeah, before you can identify the theory, okay, you need to have a clear problem statement, because at the end of the day, you're going to use the theory to substantiate, yeah, to support the problem statement that you identify. Yeah. So yeah. So once you identify the theory, right? You need to identify, and also you need to have a what we call in your write-up. Okay, you need to introduce the theory that you use. Okay, in which context that theory is basically applicable. Okay, applicable in your study. All right. If there is a need be, okay, maybe you can always compare and contrast. Okay, why you choose this theory, why not the other theory? This is also another potential question from your examiner, because it's also show that, you know, how confident you are, you know, on the theory that you choose, you know. So it also showed that you have done your homework, you have done all this comparison, you know, comparative study before you decide which theory that you're going to use. And you have to also show that, you know, how this theory have been used in the empirical study. And you know, and also you may come up with a synthesize, for example, you know, look for a common theme, a concept or framework across the selected theory. Yeah. So this is basically some basis that you use when you want to discuss on the theory. I will share with you, for example, a few examples of how you can critically evaluate theory. Yeah. So again, I think you can make a comparative study, okay, and try to compare, which theory is more appropriate to you. My advice is that don't criticize, okay? You don't make any, because critique, yeah, because you need to respect the theory itself. The theory has its own merit because the theory is very well accepted, but maybe you can comment, maybe you can comment um, on how people treat that theory, So maybe you can comment, yeah, maybe you can comment like this. Let's say that you want to study relationship between X and Y, right? X and Y. So you may say that many of these theory have predominantly focus on the direct effect of X and on Y, neglecting a potential mediating or moderating variable. So maybe you can see that the other study use the same theory, okay, but they did not incorporate as what you do, okay, what you intend to do on the mediating and also moderating variable, for example. Yeah, so this is what make your study different. Yeah. So this is one of all, and also acknowledging this limitation. Okay, so the current study aim to contribute to the field, but as in the indirect effect. Yeah, so maybe your study is different than the others. Okay, because you are considering a mediating role, or you introduce a mediating variable, for example, into the research. So this is what we mean by critically, okay, comment on the theory. So remind you that you are not expected to criticize the theory, because you can only make comment, okay, how you're going to treat the theory, differently, as compared to the previous study. Yeah. So there are many. Okay, I will share with you some of some example on how you can critically write how how you deal, how you're going to use, how you're going to leverage on that particular theory. Yeah. So you need to be able to justify why you choose the theory, why not the others, why this theory is basically relevant to support your research question. And I also share with you, okay, let's say that you want to, I'm basically interested in the circular economy, and it will fall into the sustainability related study, for example. So these are among the commonly used theory, for example, these triple bottom line theory, diffusion theory, and all this. So again, you may have your own justification, because all this theory has its own relevant. Okay, so that's why at the beginning you need to ensure that the theory that you use is basically relevant. So you need to look into the matter, like, is it at the organizational level? So you need to know your unit of analysis, right? So if your unit of analysis at the individual level, at the firm level, because you know that, theory is very much relevant either to, is only applicable, okay, to a certain unit of analysis. Okay, so that, normally very rare. I don't know, I I've not found any theory that you can use for both individual and also firm level of unit analysis. So you need to ensure, yeah, you need to ensure, for example, this theory of planned behavior, TPB, maybe most likely relevant to at the individual level. But other than that, the organizational learning theory, stakeholder theory, and all this are much more relevant in the context of the firm level. Yeah. And also, yeah, if you search this, from the internet, and even, if you get the assistance from AI, GPT, for example, so you will also get all these examples. Yeah. So I said that I think for those who are doing research, now I think you are very fortunate, because this is, AI, GPT is always available to provide you some points. I know that you cannot totally rely on that, but at least you will give you some idea on how to start with, and you can always verify this. Using the published article or research article that you can access. So these are the common dependent variable. Okay, for example, the business profitability, and these are the measurement that we use. Resource efficiency and waste reduction, this also can be a good dependent variable. And these are the measurement that that you can use. For example, customer satisfaction and loyalty. Okay, these are the measurement that you may use. Environmental impact and sustainability. So these are the example. Okay, so if you are studying on this, so perhaps these are some point for you to. So again, this is only the recommendation, okay, given by AI, for example. So you can always confirm this. You can always confirm this with the theory. You can always confirm this with your. Oh, sorry, we cannot visualize this. You cannot see this slide. Oh, okay. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so again, yeah. So these are the example. Yeah. So these are the dependent variable. But again, so that's why I say that I hope you can appreciate the process. Even though you can always make a shortcut. You can ask your supervisor, you can ask your friend, you can ask from the literature, what type of, but I would say that, the impact will be much more meaningful. Okay. If you really follow the steps, for example, go back to your user. Okay, go back to the user, and get the pain point from them, and verify this from other sources. Verify this again from AI, verify this from journal, verify this from scholars, from researcher, and so on. Because at the end of the day, all right, you want to come up with a model that relevant, where the industry would appreciate. Yeah. So, and all these are also the example of independent variable. Okay. Product design for durability and disembowel. Again, for those who are doing their research on the circular economy, for example, all right. So you can always use this, to measure how to measure your variable, or reverse logical and take back program and resource recovery and this kind of system. So all these are basically the idea that you can use to measure all these variable. And this is also the mediating variable. So yeah, you can use the supply chain integration, collaboration, and all these measurement. definition and also measurement, technology adoption and digitalization, stakeholder engagement and communication. So all these are the example of mediating variable that you may consider, okay, that you may. And this is also the moderating variable that you can also, for example, industry characteristic, organization culture, financial resources, consumer behavior, government incentive and support, and a lot more. Okay, so so again, these are the example of of the variable. Okay, for those who are working on this, sustainability, circular economy area of research. Yeah. So we are done with the define. Yeah, and then we go to ideate stage. Ideate is basically we develop the framework. Okay, we identify the variable. Okay, we identify the variable based on the pain point, but we have not yet, come up with the dimension. Yeah, the dimension of the variable. Even though I shared with you all these dimensions, this is only the example. Okay, but in our case, in our case, if you really want to follow the design thinking process, so after empathize, we define. Empathize again, the outcome is a pain point. Define the outcome is a problem statement. So we develop the problem statement at the define stage. So the problem statement is not complete as yet because you need to come up with a dimension for all those variables. Because the dimension will make your study different. There will be an innovation, even though to me the variable that you have identified also can be a form of innovation. Okay, can be in the form of innovation, but to come up with a dimension of each variable, that will be also another contribution or other idea from you. So idea is basically to translate, from identify the problem or pain into exploring solution. So in this particular verb, you come up with the solution. It's more on the as far as the research is concerned, more on the dimension, If you want to, but in the case of product development, for example, this is more on how you ideate your solution. Yeah. But in this particular research context, so you are come up with the dimension, where you focus on generating ideas to resolve problem, pain, or fulfill their wish. Okay. So in this case, you have to, of course, we need to do a lot of imagination. You have to really think in the future. Because at the end of the day, even though the variable to me is important, but it's more important is the dimension of the variable. Okay, so the quality of the variable is very much depending on the dimension of the variable. So the dimension of the variable need to be futuristic, with all the idea that the 5 elements that we have shared just now, with all the desirability, feasibility, viability, sustainability, and also futurism. Okay, so this, all that idea need to fulfill this element. So you need to imagine, you need to visualize and imagine what will be the dimension that we can work on. So that's why you need to go wide and wide in terms of identify the dimension. And so I think idea is very important because this idea will be like a seed to innovation. So that's why you need to generate lots of idea. Good idea means a lots of ideas, so you can come up with a lots of idea. So so you have to ideate, and you can brainstorm, you can brain dump, so there are several methods, there are several methods that you may use to come up with the idea. So to help you, to generate ideas, I would recommend that you translate the problem into what we call how might we statement. How might we statement, because how might we help? Okay, because we want to help. Okay, we want to come up with what we call a winning, impactful solution. So when you ideate, you need to use this statement. I mean, this statement will help you to generate ideas. So how might we help the user or the customer to educate on the environment, knowledge, and skill? All right. So again, so again, you can brainstorm. Okay, you can brainstorm, or even you can ask AI, for example, and you can use that as a basis. Sometimes I think based on my experience, AI can give you some idea, but you need to come up with your own idea. So that's why your own personal literature review, your own exposure, your own experience might be helpful in that sense. So let's say that I have this statement. How shall we help the user to educate on the environmental knowledge and skill related to circular economy? Because again, I want to fulfill the element of, we want this model to be relevant for years to come. Maybe I would say that maybe until 2015. Because again, so how shall we educate? How shall we educate the company so that they can, they can educate their management on this knowledge and skill? So these are the various ways. So you can use this as a measurement. Okay, so if you brainstorm, if you think, if you start reflecting and think, what are the ways that you can suggest to the company? Okay, so this will be a new. So as I say that, so based on this, you can also, you can use the previous study. Okay, I mean, of course you can use the previous study, but depends if because you need to ascertain, if the previous study is not futuristic enough. Okay, if not, again, if they don't think as a futurist, I'm just afraid that their idea might not be sustainable. So we want our idea, we want to something, some measurement, okay, some measurement, so that it can help, it can help them to improve their skill and knowledge. So these are the nature of dimension. I mean, depends. If you want to develop a questionnaire, depends. If you want to use a if you want to use a primary data, so maybe you can develop. Maybe you can develop. Maybe you want to develop the questionnaire that address this issue. Address this issue. Or if you are using the secondary data, okay, for example, if you want to use the a published document like annual report, or any document that produced by the company, for example. So maybe you can also, use this as a basis to measure, to measure whether or not, they have practice, they have all these practices, just to tell that, on how they educate their company with regard to the knowledge and skill. Yeah. So I mean, again, these are the, these are the dimension. Yeah, these are the dimension that you may use. Um, and another is basically you also need to come up with the idea about how to help the company to strategize on their competitive advantage. So again, okay, you may ask this question, you can think by yourself, or you can, you can use all the references, the past literature, and, and also you can use, you can also ask AI, for example, to get all this point. Similar as the previous, variable, you can turn this into a questionnaire question. You can use this as a dimension for you to gauge, in terms of the practices. Yeah. So same goes to this moderating variable. Okay, you want to help the company how they can apply design thinking paradigm, for example. So you are looking into all this dimension. Yeah, same, all this dimension. Same goes to the measure on how you're going to measure the form performance. Because again, this was also your contribution, even though you can always, you can always look at the previous literature. The common measurement that they use for firm performance will be net profit and so on. So I mean, to me, yeah, you can use that, but at the end of the day, what will be your contribution? What is so new about your research? So why not? Okay, why not you? Okay, especially now, especially companies are moving toward the circular economy. Company are moving toward the sustainability or ESG agenda. So company are not only measured by their performance based on the financial alone. Okay, they are also expected to address the element of non-financial element. So why not you come up with the measurement that that look into that, or why not you come up with the measurement, to measure all the circular economy. So again, if you reflect, if you think, and if you can ask, if you ask AI, for example, so these are the various, so these are the various measurement that you can use to measure the performance of SME or the firm performance, for example, which might be relevant in the future. Okay, so all this, maybe you can measure using sustainability performance index, where you look into the energy efficiency, carbon footprint, because these are the way that move forward, because we know that, yeah, Malaysia, and most of the country in the world now, we are moving toward this renewable energy, and most of the country are talking about the new energy agenda and so on. So as an SME, in order for them to be relevant, they also need to look into this matter. So their performance are not only seen or evaluated, based on the financial dimension alone, but they are also expected to look into the sustainability performance index and so on. So to me, will be the new contribution. Okay, so so just imagine that you come up with all this, you come up with this model where your research will come up with this model, and that will be something new, something unique, something that maybe they never thought of. There's a wow factor there, so if you can come up with this model and with all this measurement, okay, so that's why the wow factor, wow, yeah, this is good. Okay, and that will make you relevant, because I think as a PhD holders, you are expected not only, to produce a good research, but you are also expected to be champion or to be expert, okay, in certain area. Yeah, so maybe you can call yourself expert in, expert in, CE or circular economy model. Yeah, so you will be the point of reference, you will be the expert person, in this particular context. So how, what warrant you, okay? What warrant you to become an expert in this particular area, okay, if you are able to, offer with something new. I think if you, again, yeah, so all this, or you may look into the circular economy maturity, assessment, you look at the product design, material efficiency, and because, especially when you're talking about SME in the manufacturing industry in Malaysia, okay, until years 2050. So we are talking about years to come, yeah. So that's why we need to be, futuristic in this particular element, yeah. So all these, life cycle assessment, all these, tracking and traceability system. So all these are the measurement, okay. So all these are the measurement that you may use, right? That to measure the performance a lot. So yeah, so that's why I say that, either you do your own research, get references from AI. That will help. I know that, we don't have the capability, to think about all this, but you have to leverage all the sources, that basically available, and then you develop the prototype. So the prototype is basically, a model, and earlier we call it inexpensive and scaled down version, that you basically translate the idea that you have into something, yeah. So that's why ideally your prototype in a form of a picture, in a form of graphic, because good prototype is something that you can visualize. Without explanation, people can visualize how would be your proposed solution. So fail fast, fail cheap, fail early, and go out to fail. So this is basically the concept that we use when we introduce prototype. Yeah. So all right. So as far as the research, is concerned, okay, the prototype will be in the form of theoretical framework. So you have to use the power of visualization. How you can use all this, bird eye view and visualization and everything, right, to come up with it. So this is the example, yeah, the example of a prototype. So let's say that this is the theoretical framework. So on your left is your IV, yeah, is your IV. So these are the 7 elements, okay. These are the 7 sub variable or item, okay, and from there you can so this is what we call this theoretical framework. So the user, okay, the user might able to appreciate when you can show this in a very visualized manner, yeah. So you saw that, this is the mediating variable, this is the moderating variable, this is a dependent variable, and you see how they relate, yeah. Okay. So, and you can also, propose this, all this model, so again, all this idea, whether you want to use this 7, or maybe you can use this, 10, or maybe why not? Why so many? Because sometimes if you, to me is the most important is you have a holistic framework. I know that I have one, I mean, we have several cases actually. The examiner asks, for example, why your variable is so many. I don't know. I don't know how to respond to that, but I don't think the number matter, as long as it can really show that, this model work, this model have an impact. I mean, so this is the challenges that we face, when we have that, culture that we cannot have too many variable, how can you assess, I mean, to me, that should not be the criteria, the criteria is more on that 5 element just now, if there should be, Alex Osterwalder, for example, you have 9 elements. Okay, he has 9 elements, and but we have cases. We have cases that, if the student put more than 4 variables, for example, so the examiner will question, why is too many and so on. So I think that is the challenge. That's a challenge that we have. So as a candidate, okay, as a candidate, so that's why you need to be clear on your philosophy. Your philosophy is basically to ensure it's relevant. So that's why, if my suggestion is that, if after getting all the finding, okay, after getting all the finding, you get a feedback, okay, you get a feedback, because after this prototype, the last step is to test. Because if you follow strictly on design thinking, the next step is to test. The testing is not only the data analysis testing, but you also need to test, yeah? So that's, I mean, this is how the research title look like, yeah? So based on my proposed model, okay, the research title may look like this, yeah? The role of competitive advantage as mediator in the relationship between circular economy practices and firm performance of SME in the matching industry in Malaysia. The moderating effect of design thinking paradigm. I know it's a bit too long, but we can always concise this, so the last but not least is, if you really follow through this concept of EDIPT, yeah, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, the last thing that we need to do is to test. So a conventional research methodology would stop at data analysis, hypothetical hypothesis testing, and you get that finding, and that's it. And getting the significant relationship is the ultimate aim. Whereby I think if you apply the design thinking paradigm, you should extend to the other level, where why not you bring your model, okay? After you get all that significant relationship, why not you bring that model into the industry, to the user, and test with the real customer and get their opinion. So I think, that will strengthen, okay, that will strengthen your finding. To me, that will really justify the practicality of your model, how the practical contribution of your model. To me, in the most thesis that I read, I would say that, mostly most researcher would provide just a cliche, statement on the practicality. But to me, when it comes to the practical contribution, why not engage and test that, directly with the user? What are their opinion? Are they willing to accept? Are they willing to, bring, use this in their decision-making process? So that will speak louder, that endorsement, yeah. that endorsement from the user will speak louder to me, even from the data analysis process. Yeah. So I think if you bring that, into your Viva, and if the examiner asks you, for example, why you use 9, 10, variable, but you can always defend that. You have tested, you have get the opinion from the industry, the user, and they get the buy-in and they approve that. So I don't know whether that that examiner would are basically willing to challenge, able to challenge the approval given by the industry. So so that's why we in design thinking we do this testing element. So that's why the design thinking, in comparison with the normal research process, is very linear. Yeah. Okay. Very linear. Okay. Theory, hypothesis, and so on. Very linear. But in design thinking process, we call it has the element of interaction. So empathize. After empathize, you go to define, you go to ideate, you go to ideate. If you can see this arrow, okay, you can see this arrow, you can always go back to the previous step. Just take the example. Yeah, that's how this model really really works. If you after getting the pain point at the empathize stage, you should be able to get the problem statement in the define stage. So if you are not able to find a good problem statement, I just afraid that you might have done, you might have, there must something short, okay, in your empathize state. So perhaps maybe you need to revisit, you need to iterate and go back to empathize. Maybe your pain point is not clear enough. So that's why you are not able to come up with the problem statement. Okay. So so if you are clear on the problem statement, then you go to ideate. So if you have any problem, you can't ideate, you can't generate idea. So that also something wrong with the problem, and so on. So this is what we meant by interactive. Even until test, for example, until test, if the user are not happy, so perhaps maybe you can revisit and look into. I know that's why I say that it seems unpopular. Okay, it seems unpopular, because say that, if we follow this, maybe we need 10 years to complete our PhD. So to me, if you really follow the process, if you take about 1 or 2 months, to come up with the framework, for example, and in fact, before you test, before you do the testing, what we call this the data analysis, you can just go ahead using that prototype, using that framework, and test that to the user. And from there, if the user are not happy, then you can always iterate and repeat the process. Okay, not until you finish everything. I know that it's a bit too late, So why not, if you do that as soon as possible? But that only happen, if you have someone who can help you to identify the framework as soon as possible. The issue is that many of the students are even they are struggling even to come up with the acceptable theoretical framework for years. Okay, so that is the issue, because if you are not able to come up with a framework as soon as possible, of course that is you can't really follow this. Yeah. So this is basically the strength, yeah, the strength of design thinking, the power of interactive that also show the effectiveness and also the robustness of the service and product. And in our research, for example, how robust our model, yeah, and our model. So so this is also another I will share again. I think to give some time for question and answer, perhaps I will go through quite quickly and how to write this this research what we call how to write a literature review. I think Dr. No have covered this. Maybe I will share with you how how the literature review chapter is basically covered. Yeah. But I believe that I think all of you must have some idea about how to write, because I think as what I advise to all my students, you need to read at least 2 or 3 a good thesis, for you to get some clear idea, about how to prepare, how to write an acceptable thesis. So with that experience, I think that all of you must be able to know, okay, how to write a good literature review. But you can still refer to this on how to strengthen the process, because we know that literature review is with the ultimate aim is basically to substantiate, to substantiate your idea. That's the whole issue. If you ask me, the purpose of literature review is basically to support, just to support your framework. That's it. Okay, because you have developed this. Okay, you have developed this framework. Okay, so you use all the experience that you have, based on the pain point that you develop. Okay, the pain point that you develop, and then you and from here, okay, from here you develop the framework. Yeah. So based on this, now you also, to me, your framework is your proposed idea. I would call that your belief. This is what you believe. Okay, this is what you believe, and you believe that this is going to work. Okay, so the next step is basically you're going to defend, you're going to substantiate your framework, your belief model. Okay, the model that you believe will work. Okay, on SME manufacturing with regard to the circular economy practices. So now you go to the literature and want to confirm almost everything. You have developed the framework, you develop the framework. Now is basically your task is just to confirm, because you are not plucking this from the thin air. Yeah, you are not plucking this from the thin air, but you develop this with reason, with justification, with support from the practitioner, from the industry, and you want to confirm this with the literature. So you want to confirm this with the theory, with the literature on theory. We want to confirm this with the literature based on the study, based on the finding, based on the philosophy and thought. And this is what you do in research. Yeah. So so basically, so from there, this is how you develop the hypothesis, how you organize the literature review chapter. Okay, you have the introduction, we have the background, and the theme of the key topics. So now we take all the variables. Okay, you take all the variable, and also these are the sub of the variable, and also and all these basically critical analysis, the relationship between all those. Yeah. Okay. So and again, just I think you know this, but it's quite challenging, I know. But I mean, I share with you some of the good example of how you're going to do a critical synthesis of literature review. Yeah. So again, when you do the literature review, you're not only, just highlight the finding, the relationship. No, you are expected to do what we call this, critical synthesis. So after reading all those, what something new that you can gather from that. That's what we call the synthesis. Yeah, you do this. So that's why over here, yeah, study, investigating. So again, yeah, so it's all, yeah, where they reach 4 p.m. Yeah. So, but again, I will share with you all these example for you to refer. Yeah. So I mean, again, I asked the AI GPT, what are, I mean, I think that's why I say that, we need to be brave enough, to be different, So I think since, we just follow, yeah? We just follow. And so that's why most theses would just give literature review. In fact, you can name it in a different form, I think that will make your literature review much more interesting, looking at the topics. But anyhow, these are the common structure, how you organize literature review, okay, and with all this, okay. And so, okay, yeah, I'm sorry I have to go a bit quick, yeah, because it's too much to cover, but I really hope that you can, I know it's quite, it's quite new to, I mean, to all of you, especially, when I work on that, problem statement on how to turn that into a research question, hypothesis. But to me, if you can appreciate, you can appreciate the step, to me, that will very, very helpful. Especially want to develop the clear problem statement, because as for now, I think I would say that in most research, I mean, for most theses that I examine, I would say that almost majority of the thesis don't have a clear problem statement, because I mean, yeah, they are not really clear on, on those elements. So I hope that, this method, will help you, okay, to come up with much more clearer, okay, a research problem, and you may use this as a basis. So with that, I think I will stop here and I will open for question. Okay. Yeah. There's hypothesis required. If hypothesis is required, is studies on developing new systems, study related. For quantitative, yeah, for quantitative research, you need hypothesis, because the whole concept, yeah, the whole concept of quantitative method is basically hypothesis testing element. So you need to come up with a hypothesis. I mean, to me, even easier if you work on your hypothesis, because that's why I say that, you don't look hypothesis just a mere statement. I would suggest that, you look hypothesis as though that is your belief, that's something that you want to recommend, something that you have a strong belief in. Let's say that, this variable will influence that variable. That is the belief that you want to send across. So to do justice to your belief system, okay, to do justice to the belief system, you need to test that hypothesis. So that's why, that's why you need to come up with a hypothesis and test that hypothesis. Unless you are using the qualitative research, of course, they don't have, because they don't test the hypothesis statistically. But that's why we have, they have, like, for example, assumption or proposition, but still these are that statement that they believe as correct. So again, I think as far as the hypothesis testing is concerned, you need to have that hypothesis. Yeah. Any other question? Any other question? Yeah. Oh, thank you. What is the best length of problem statement? To me, it depends on, the culture of your own respective university, and also your discipline of study, for example. That's why I love problem statement. I wish that many of us can imitate the approach taken by the engineering and even the pure sciences, because they have a very clear problem statement. Because from the problem statement, we need to know what will be the contribution, what will be the solution like, so it depends. Yeah. So I would suggest that, go back to your own respective institution, what will be the convention? Yeah, convention. But if I were, ask you that, the problem statement can be in just in one para, but the definition, yeah, the discussion of the problem statement, it should not be, more than 10 pages, because the problem statement is just basically highlight for each variable, because it's just to justify the importance of all the variable that you have chosen. So for example, that in your problem statement, you have this from performance, for example. So your highlight is basically why company are not performing, and so you show all the data, why the company are not performing, and so it just basically show that, yeah, basically show how your just to justify all the variable that you put in your problem statement, it really exists. The problem warrant for research. That's why I say that another statement for the problem statement is basically it warrant a research. Why it warrant a research? Because the variable that you include in the problem statements are not well addressed. No research have looked into that matter. And that will also make your research different. Yeah. So you come up with the new, for example, firm performance, why we have problem with the firm performance, and what are the measurements that they currently use, and so on and so forth. Because you have to show that there is an issue, there is a problem with all that variable. So because we have some issue with that problem, that warrant you to study. Yeah. So the problem statement is basically, this is the problem faced by the user. The user are not clear, because if the user can find the solution, okay, if they don't have that need for you to address, I would say that it does not warrant a research. Okay, it warrant a research because the user are confused. The user do not have a clear direction, clear definition about those, about those issues. Can you please summarize difference between statement problem? Okay, I would say that the the same statement of problem or problem statement, to me the same. Yeah. Do all the problem statement has to be supported by? That's why I say that I always look into the future study. Of course, all those questions are not being addressed by the prior research. I think if those questions, if the research question that you have has already answered, okay, already answered by the previous study, I don't see, how you're going to contribute toward the body of knowledge. So, yeah, that I would respond, support by the past study. So my suggestion is basically try to come up with a new model, with a new model where no one has studied it before, okay, and so if someone has studied it before, they might have a different answers, they might have a different finding or mixed finding. That is, that will be justifiable for your problem. Okay. Highlighting on the scale literature ability, what do you think the best chance of the okay, so when it comes to literature, I think we need to do justice to all the literature, because I think that's why we should not confine our literature to what basically available in our domain or in our discipline. Try to widen the net, yeah, try to cover the literature from the other area as well, because especially the study about social science, there are lots of study on human, okay, done by the others, like from the sociology, anthropology, and psychology. Brave enough to venture into the others area, rather than limiting ourselves into them, because so that's to me, I think this is the advantage that we have now, okay, because lots of study has been done. Just a matter of how shall we discover all those material, all of those references, and so that we can use as a basis. Yeah. How many Alice theory needed? To me, even though people might say that you need to develop an underlying theory or the umbrella umbrella theory, and then for each hypothesis, you need to have another theory. But to me, I would say the safest way is for each hypothesis, for each hypothesis, for each relationship, need to be supported by at least one theory. So in that sense, if those theory can be shared with the other hypothesis, you don't need that many theory, But for each hypothesis, need to be substantiated, need to be supported by. I mean, to me, one theory is enough, but a relevant theory, okay? Because again, logically, each hypothesis is supported by one theory. Yeah. Can be a single model used in PhD. A single model can be underlying. Yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, if you rely on certain model, okay, as the theory, if you use a certain model as theory, that's why I say that is go back to your hypothesis. Okay, if one theory can cover the explanation for most of the theory, why not? But to me, I would say that it's quite risky and less interesting, because to me, a good hypothesis is it needs some differentiation, because I'm just afraid that if you use almost the same theory, I'm just afraid that the hypothesis is a bit interrelated. Yeah. So you have, I mean, you may find that risk. Yeah. So if it's interrelated, so you got fall into this multi-connectivity and so on. So my suggestion is that try as much as possible to have a different theory for each hypothesis. Yeah. Or maybe one or two hypotheses supported by one theory is still can be considered. But if most of the theory is supported by one theory, I think I just afraid that one is your study is not robust enough, because good model is where the item or the elements are quite robust or quite diverse. Okay, so I mean, ideally, if you have 9 variables in that model, ideally that a good model is where each variable has its own uniqueness. Okay, so in that sense, maybe you need to be supported by one theory. How do we address potential own bias to the anti-thesis process? Yeah, so that's why I think we as a human, we always have this bias. Of course, we as a human, we always have this personal interest, personal biasness. So that's why you need to have this paradigm shift, from self-focus to self-focus to the customer-centered. So I don't think that, I don't think that will be a clash. I mean, there will be a similarity on that element. I don't think that your personal interest will be the same as the customer interest. If it's the same, it's good. Yeah. But to me, the best judges, the best judges will be the customer. So if the customer are happy, even though inside your heart you say that you have some personal bias there, so I think it's still acceptable, unless you force the customer, unless you force the customer to accept your idea. But if you do it in a very natural way, and you can win, you can win the heart of the customer, and the customer say, wow, that's good, that's great. So even though you may have some personal bias on that, to me, as long as the customer is happy, I don't think the examiner will question on that. All right. I mean, to me, the background of the study is basically, I mean, normally the background of the study in the chapter 1. That's why chapter 1 is the chapter that, the last chapter that we write. Chapter 1 is basically the opportunity for the researcher to tell what is so interesting, about your study. Yeah. So you highlight all the background just to show that, just like just like a window, just like a door, or just like a display, for example, just to show that, this will be something that I'm going to study. It's so important, it's so relevant, for the customer, and it's quite attractive. It's very inviting for the reader to read. So that is my my 2 cents with regard to the background. Does identifying a worldview and paradigm will be able to reduce bias level, also support into that? Yeah. So as I said that, yeah, because a good research question, a good research question, a good research design is when the process is basically well recognized, well acknowledged by the stakeholders, by the stakeholders. So the more is acceptable by the stakeholders, the least likely that you're going to use the least likely that you have some bias on that. So that's why I say that the safest, the safest way to reduce that personal bias is basically win the customer, win the customer heart, get the buy-in, from them. Yeah. Okay. If you want to incorporate the testing stage, do we include as part of the research framework in chapter 3? Or I mean, to me, why not? Why not? I mean, to me, this, I would say that the thesis is like a story, the storybook, the story of how you design your research. Because at the end of the day, you have your output, and people want to know the story behind how you come about with that finding. So we want to know all the good story, all the convincing story that you have done, to show that the model are acceptable, the model is acceptable. So you have to tell almost everything, all that positive element, like you have done, you have do the testing, you have engaged the customer. I mean, to me, these are the selling point, just to enhance or strengthen the quality of your work. Yeah. So go ahead, tell. I mean, to me, I just saying that the thesis is like your storybook. Yeah. You want to tell all the story about what you have done, and what you have done, and also I think as a reader, that's why I say that, the people are getting more sophisticated, people are become more critical, and so all the reader of your thesis, we evaluate the quality of your finding. So if we if we basically if we basically able to tell, okay, or convince your user, okay, our user, or your user, about how rigor you have done, okay, how the rigor process you have, how robust you have done, okay, that will be the selling point. Yeah. So that's why I say that, thesis is your story, story to tell that, what are the process that you have done, to come up with that model. Yeah. All right. Sure. Okay. Sure, Daniel. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other question? Any question that I missed? Okay. Okay. So yeah. All right. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your interest and also for your passion and passion. Okay, to listen to my thought. I know it's quite challenging, especially even my part as well is quite difficult for me to explain most of these element, especially to challenge your status quo. Yeah, you challenge your norm. Yeah, your norm of how you do research. Yeah, but I hope that it can shed some light. Okay. Um, to your research journey. Okay. So that, again, that's why I always say that, by right, the time that we invest will help us not to become rich like Alex Osterwalder, but at least some commercial value out of it, and not only for our own satisfaction, but also why not? Yeah, why not? And because we have invested too much, I think, we need to ensure that we have a good return out of it. These 2-3 years, I know is very painful, we have to sacrifice a lot. I still remember that, we sacrifice our vacation, we sacrifice most of the thing, so we really have that, we really hope that, this, at the end of the journey, we're going to get something worthwhile and valuable. So with that, I would like to thank you again. I wish all of you all the best, and hope, and I hope you have, we have the opportunity to see each other at least, face to face one day. Yeah. So with that, thank you very much, and see you around. All right. Bye.